Welcome to Daily Devotional. Today we'll be talking about Christian principles when Jordan Peterson talks about why he does not go to church. So let's just listen on.
Can we take the biblical? Andrew Wells asks, can we take the biblical story seriously enough without also keeping biblical traditions? What's the psychological impact of group gathering, church going?
So I think to explain first what a traditional church gathering may be, it could be just attending a physical church, going to a church and then participating in singing of songs or hymns, and then maybe taking the Holy Communion, and finally, all if not most churches should be preaching the word. And that's a very traditional way. That's the traditional liturgy of how church is actually done.
I think we could take the biblical stories seriously enough, but I don't think that it's particularly easy. The traditions bind the community together. Now, I'm saying that, and I don't go to church, and the reason I don't go to church.
So I think it is true that the traditions of the church bind a community together. If you think about it, how do people actually form bonds? They have to meet up in a certain way. I think in the past they have to meet up physically, but now I guess you can meet up digitally as well. But the idea is still you need a form on a place. I mean, you need a form of meeting at a place in order to build bonds, and therefore traditionally that's how ties are form. It is quite difficult to have ties form without a physical meeting place. Even online, it may be a bit more difficult, and some people do feel distant because they think that it's just speaking to a computer. And church traditionally is a place that binds people together because it's always a commitment that people go for every Sunday, meaning that normally church services will be either or Saturday or Sunday, and people will actually attend those churches, and the regular attendance and the regular meetings will cause people to be able to see people that have already been there, like regulars that have been coming, and that's when ties and bonds are formed in churches.
Churches because, well, it drives me crazy, to speak frankly. I haven't been able to sit in a situation like that ever since I was, well, ever, really. That's really the truth of it. Ever. Um, I'm not convinced.
So I think what Jordan Peterson is saying here is that he has not really felt welcome in a church service before, or whatever church that he has been to, and I think this is not a uncommon problem. I think a lot of people sometimes feel lonely even though they are in church in a community of believers, and I think it's not to put light on people that feel this way, but to let people know that other people also suffer these things. And so the question that comes up commonly is, why do people feel lonely when God is omnipresent and God is everywhere? And why do I feel lonely when there are people around me? Should I not feel lonely? So I think the problem is not in terms of physical presence where people are there, but it's the problem of the condition of the flesh. So the flesh, in the flesh dwells no good thing, and in the flesh most probably dwells our emotions and our feelings. So in that way, what really happens is that our flesh contains all these emotions, and loneliness is part of these emotions. The Bible does not speak directly to these emotions, but it normally speaks in terms of the feelings of people, and in terms of the mind and the heart of people. So but the Bible also writes that we don't seek, or we don't follow the mind or the heart, but we seek God for all these things. So loneliness is just a manifestation of our humanness.
Convinced that that's a good thing, because I do believe, and I've had good conversations about this with Jonathan Pageau, I do believe that communal return to the source of the community's ethics is actually a necessary thing. And maybe I'm atoning for my past sins by doing these biblical lectures at the moment, which is something that's communal. So, and then because there's also something about going where a bunch of other people are to reaffirm your commitment to the good that you're all aiming at, that's got some power in it. And I don't think that that's something that we should forego. I think it's dangerous. I mean, look.
Let me cut there for. I think what he's saying is sounds a bit abstract, but he said we are there's a regular commitment to go to somewhere to affirm the good. I think to put it in easier terms is to understand that he's saying that we as Christians, if you are a Christian, you go to church to reaffirm Christ, to reaffirm things that are good, and he puts good in a very objective way, and I think he will start to address more of it continuing in the video. But Jordan Peterson's view tends to be a very objective view of Christianity. I remember watching his videos that he talks about the Judeo-Christian view being an objective view, and it's already a view that has already been created and already been assimilated in Western culture, because Western culture was built on the foundations um, of these biblical principles or Christian principles.
Even if you're cynical about church, and I guess I would put myself in that category, it's it's certainly the case that communal church going in the 1950s, say, provided the average person with at least an hour a week where they were contemplating, no matter how poorly, the purpose of ethics in life, and the idea of a higher purpose and a higher meaning in life. And you got to think that spending an hour a week thinking about that is better than never doing it at all. So
Yeah, so I think I'll stop here, but I think the idea that Jordan Peterson talks about is that having a fixed time or a fixed or regular schedule to think about ethics every week can be a good thing. Yeah, and that it helps to ground people in their ethics and their morals. So Jordan Peterson talks about going to church in a very secular manner. Maybe I'll do a reaction on whether he is a Christian, which people have claimed that he's not, and he himself did not really claim that he's a Christian. But I think the ideas are interesting, and that I think Jordan Peterson affirms that having traditions like going to church are very helpful for many people, because they affirm their beliefs, and when they affirm their beliefs in terms of Christianity, they're able to discuss about ethics and talk about ethics as well. And I think the fundamental thing that Jordan Peterson is trying to say is that religion, or in this case Christianity, brings about a form of ethics that science cannot actually put to words. And this is something that John Lennox talks about, that if you see my video of science versus God, God of the gaps, I think I'll link it at the end of the video. John Lennox says that science is able to point out certain things, but ethics or philosophy is able to point out something else. So for example, he gives an example of pouring he gives an example of boiling tea. So you can look at it at two ways. When boiling tea, you look at a scientific perspective whereby the molecules are getting heat energy and then they're vibrating as fast as possible. That's why they are boiling. Or you can look at it at a philosophical perspective, that the water is boiling because we want to cleanse the water to drink from it. So I think this is a very Jordan Peterson talks about philosophy. And if you really like this kind of reaction videos, do let me know by subscribing, liking, and commenting. So I know that this content helps you to think in a Christian perspective when philosophical arguments come up, and for your daily devotions. Thank you and God bless.